guys, welcome back to Food Prep Guide. Today is the first in a video series that we are starting on all of the different things that you can from tomato sauce. Now, if you don't grow tomatoes, or maybe you do and don't grow enough of a volume to be able to produce all of the things you want to can, and maybe you don't want to spend a fortune at the grocery store, we're going to be using a little bit of a cheat, a little bit of a hack to allow us to still be able to can tons of food frugally and without having to grow a ton of tomatoes, because it takes a lot of tomatoes just to create sauce, and then to use that sauce to create all of these other types of meals, it's a lot. So one thing that we can do to save us a lot of time and money is all of these number 10 cans of tomato sauce. So these number 10 cans of tomato sauce, you can get them just about anywhere. I ordered these online at walmart.com and they are $5 a piece, y'all. $5 a piece for a number 10 can. And that is, let me see, weight 6 pounds and 10 ounces of sauce in this can, all ready to go, ready for me to just start making my meals quick and easy. So I'm talking canning today. So we are going to be doing tons of canning projects. We're going to be doing barbecue sauce, chili base, sloppy joe starter, pizza sauce, like a tomato soup concentrate type thing. And we're going to be all using these number 10 cans of tomatoes. We're going to be breaking up the videos according to recipes so that you can just pick the one that you are interested in most and watch that. And then at the end of each video, we will plop it up on screen for the next video, so that if you're interested, you can just click right there on screen and it will take you to the next recipe that uses a number 10 can of tomato sauce. Okay, for this first one, we are going to do barbecue sauce. So let's get started. By the way, if you would like help building your food storage, scroll down to the description box of this video and click this link for our free 1-year food storage plan. We calculated a year's supply of food for one person, then broke that data down into a week-by-week list of items to build your pantry on a budget. We'll send it straight to your inbox. If you're new here, we invite you to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you don't miss all of our upcoming food preservation, pantry storage, and gardening tutorials. Now back to the kitchen. So before I even get started on this canning recipe, I want to know the pH of this particular tomato sauce. Because there are so many different ingredient variations in tomato sauce, it can vary wildly in pH levels. So I want to know what I'm dealing with before I even add anything else. So I'm just going to pull off a little test strip here. I've got a little spoon. I'm just going to dip a little bit on there. Wipe it off. And then I'll read it in just a split second, about 10 seconds, 10-15 seconds is all it takes. And we are in between a 3.5 and a 4.0. We need to be below 4.6, and since pH strips typically go by 0.5s, I always make sure I'm below that 4.5, and I am for sure below that 4.5, and we have lots of other acidic ingredients that we'll be adding to the tomato sauce as well, or excuse me, the barbecue sauce. So I'm confident that we'll be good to go. But at the end of the recipe, before I actually start loading the canning jars, I'm going to test one more time and make sure we are in the safety zone as far as acidity goes. Okay, this recipe for barbecue sauce is adapted from a Ball canning book, and I am wanting to make approximately 15 to 16 pints. I'm trying to meet my goal of no longer having to buy barbecue sauce from the grocery store, and I think 15 pints might be enough to get us through the year. So I am multiplying the recipe by 9. So this is going to be a lot of things going in here, and some of the ingredients are going to look big time overkill. I'm looking at the sugar, the brown sugar, and it's 8 cups of brown sugar, but spread that across 16 pints. That's only about half a cup per pint, and we like our barbecue sauce to be a little more sweet than spicy with our young children. Spicy doesn't go over too well. So let's just get started, and keep in mind this is 9 times a regular recipe, and we're going to be averaging 15 to 16 pints, but I'll let you know at the end exactly how many we get. Okay, so first up is going to be our tomato sauce. I'm going to be using 3 number 10 cans, and I am not going to be able to do this without making a huge mess, I'm afraid. Okay, here we go. Here we go. Next, we're going to add 8 cups of brown sugar. I've already got that measured out. 8 cups of brown sugar. Let's get that mixed down in there. Now that I've got all this tomato sauce in here, I am going to go ahead and turn it on low. We will eventually need to bring it to a boil, but for now I'm just going to turn it on low while I get all this in here. It's bubbling, but not because of the heat. It's bubbling because all that brown sugar got plopped in there and it's making its way down and forcing air up to the top. That's funny. Let me rinse my spoon off real quick. Next, we need 3 cups of apple cider vinegar. 3 cups. This is what's going to add our acidity to make it safe to water bath can. But the tomato sauce, as we saw, is already nice and acidic. But this just makes sure, and it adds a delicious flavor to this barbecue sauce. I have been testing out recipes for weeks now, trying to decide what kind of barbecue sauce I want to can, and this is the one that won. Okay, so let's see, apple cider vinegar. Okay, 1/2 cup of Worcestershire sauce. Next, we need 1.5 cups of lemon juice. Next, we need 4.5 tablespoons of mustard. You can use already liquid prepared mustard or like a dry ground mustard powder if you prefer. I like the taste. I tried it both ways and I like the taste of the prepared mustard better. So we need, whoops, exploded. Okay, we need 4.5 tablespoons of mustard. And this is not going to be super precise, and that is okay. 3-ish, 4-ish, and a 1/2-ish. Okay, next is going to be some powders, which I need my tablespoon for, so let me get that nice and clean real quick. Okay, next we need 4.5 tablespoons of onion powder. Now, when I was calculating this recipe, I was calculating it to get the maximum amount in this pot size, and I'm kind of scared that I didn't calculate right, because this is looking like it's going to overfill. But we'll see. 2, 3, 4.5-ish. Next, we need 1/2 cup of paprika. 1/2 cup of paprika. If I had smoked paprika, I would much prefer to be using that right now, but I don't. And I really need to get some barbecue sauce on my shelf because I'm being stubborn and I don't want to buy it. Okay. Okay, 4.5 tablespoons of salt. Those clumps will break up as the heat and liquid gets in there, so I'm not worried about those. 2-ish, 3, 4, and a 1/2-ish. Next is pepper, and we need 1.5 tablespoons of pepper. This is something that I decreased pretty significantly from the original recipe, because we don't want it super duper spicy. In fact, I'm going to go really light on that 1/2 tablespoon. Okay, last but not least is garlic powder. So I'm going to put 1.5 tablespoons of garlic powder. fish. Okay, let me get my whisk and let's get stirring. Ooh, that pepper's about to make me sneeze. Man, I barely made it, didn't I? Barely calculated it. We're gonna be in trouble when it starts boiling. Oh well, make it work. Okay, those clumps of spices, once that heat gets in there, once I'm able to stir it all the way down to the bottom, it'll dissolve. And then we need to bring this to a very gentle boil. And then we're going to immediately lower it to a simmer and simmer for 30 minutes. So I'm going to bring it up to a boil and then lower to a simmer for 30 minutes. And we'll be back when it's time to can. Our barbecue sauce is ready, so I'm going to go ahead and start filling it up, and we're going to go to 1/2 inch headspace. I've already stirred it up really well and made sure it's all nice and incorporated. There was some foam produced from the tomatoes, and I did go ahead and kind of scoop that off with a spoon a little bit as best I could. One thing to note about barbecue sauce, I don't know about y'all, but we like it kind of thick. And one thing about canning is we have to be careful about how thick our end product is, because that affects how well the heat can penetrate fully into the jar to reach the center contents. So if I want a thicker barbecue sauce when I go to use it, I will just heat it up on the stovetop before I add it to whatever I'm using, and I'll add a tablespoon of arrowroot powder. You could use cornstarch if you like. We prefer arrowroot powder just to avoid the cornstarch, but that gives it a very nice and thick texture. But this is already, I mean, it's not super thick, but it's not thin either. I'm pretty happy with the consistency of it. When the timer had about 15 minutes left on this barbecue sauce, I went ahead and got my canner prepared. We are water bath canning, so I got my canner filled halfway with water, put my little basket in it, put my clean jars inside, and I have it sitting over there on low medium heat waiting for me to load up jars. Wow, I think I'm going to end up with way more than 16 pints. Because this is, once I'm done with this batch right here, this is 8 pints. And I'm nowhere near close to being half emptying this pot. So that's good. I'd much rather more than less, but I miscalculated big time. But that's okay. At least I miscalculated on the more side rather than less. wanted to show you a 1/2 inch headspace just in case anyone out there is completely brand new to canning. I want to show you a 1/2 inch headspace real quick. Put a tiny bit more, just a little bit. Okay. So 1/2 inch headspace is just above, in between here and here. Ooh, that's hot. Can't hold that up too long. Okay. Last jar. I'm gonna have to do this in multiple batches. I actually have my digital pressure canner on the counter behind me, and it doubles as it has a water bath canning feature. So I'll be able to process 16 pints at a time between my regular stovetop and the Presto. Okay, so now we need to debubble, and debubbling is getting all of the air out. So I'm just going to take this little tool. You can use a wooden spoon, a butter knife, a chopstick, anything like that. You just want to swirl it around and get all those air pockets out that may have formed. This smells so good. Next, we need to wipe our rims, and I have just a folded paper towel here with just water, just damp enough. We're going to wipe the rims, and as I go, I'm going to fold it over, get a nice clean piece, and this just prevents any food from getting trapped under the lid and preventing us from getting a good seal. Okay, I'm going to give my headspace a good look. Make sure everything's looking good. Everything looks good. Okay, I've got new clean lids over here. Just going to put those on. And our rings to fingertip tight, which just means we're not going to screw it down really hard. Okay, just realized that I forgot to show the pH test again. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. So I do want y'all to see that. So I'm just going to take a little bit, dip it on here. It's going to make a mess. Wipe it off. Wait about 10-15 seconds. And then compare it to our color chart here. And we are even lighter green than we were first, and we are definitely in that 3.5 range, which is well below the 4.6 mark that we need to be at. So this is completely safe to water bath can. I'm going to put the lid on, turn this to high heat, and make sure this comes to a hard rolling boil before I start the timing process. And once it's at a hard rolling boil, this needs to process for 20 minutes. Be sure to adjust that for your elevation. Processing time is up. My other canner across the counter over there is being a little bit loud. Sorry about that. But here's our barbecue sauce. It processed for 20 minutes. I let it sit in my canner with the heat turned off for about 5 minutes. And now I'm going to set these in a place where I can won't have to move them or anything for 12 to 24 hours before I check seals and label them. It's the next day after canning our barbecue sauce, so we ended up with 22 pints, which I'm really excited about. So now it's just a matter of getting it prepared for the shelf. So I'm just going to take off all the rings. That's just a safety thing to help protect against a false seal. Once I get all these rings off, I'm going to check the seals and make sure we're good to go. I always do the same 3-step check when I'm checking my seals, and that is to run my finger over and make sure that little center button is pressed down. We shouldn't be able to press down at all on these lids. I mean, it's definitely shouldn't be hearing a popping sound. Okay, good to go. Next, I'm going to do a little tapping and make sure it's all like a high-pitched sound. This one had a little bit lower sound than all the others, so I'm just going to kind of pick it up, pull on this, make sure it's really good and tight, and it is. The reason why a jar can have a low-pitched sound even when it's sealed is that some of the liquid or contents from the jar have gotten sucked up and are on the underside of the lid. There's nothing wrong with it. The food is perfectly safe. It's just when food gets on the underside of that lid, it can make it have a lower sound than all the others. Last but not least, I just pick up the jar very carefully by the lid and just kind of give it a tug. Make sure we don't have any movement on those lids. Make sure they are good and tight. Okay, we're good to go. Next, if I need to clean the jars, I will. This time I just need to wipe them down because they just have some water deposits on them from my hard water. If you live on a well or have hard water, you can get this kind of dusty kind of film on your jars. It wipes off, nothing's wrong with it, but you can prevent that by adding a splash of vinegar to your can or water when you're canning. I just forget pretty much all the time, so. But it'll also make your jars super clear and not cloudy either if you do that. And it sure is nice to have our jars, all of our hard work, looking as absolutely beautiful as possible on the shelf. That's kind of a reward for our labors, but they're still pretty, even if they have a little bit of a cloudy film to them. Next, I'm going to label and date them all. So I'm just going to write barbecue, BBQ, and the month and the year. So 11/23. It just hit me that I didn't have a single lid failure, so that's awesome. That's why I prefer 4 jars lids. They are my go-to. Highly recommend them. And that is it. All of this barbecue sauce is ready to go on the shelf. And as you saw, it came together very quickly, very easily, thanks to our number 10 can of tomato sauce. We have several other videos in this series, and they will be popping up right around here in a playlist right around here with all of the recipes that we're making, showing you how to use a number 10 can of tomato sauce to make your canning projects go a lot quicker. I hope that's helpful to y'all, and we will see you on the next one. Bye.